Cold War tensions crackle in the air, a world divided by suspicion and secrecy. In the heart of this frosty conflict, a British spy named George Blake sits in prison, branded a traitor. His sentence, 42 years behind bars. But for Blake, freedom burns brighter than any prison wall. This is the story of a man who wouldn't stay locked away, a daring escape that defied logic and shocked the world. George Blake, born George Behar on November 11, 1922 in Rotterdam, Netherlands, became one of the most infamous spies of the Cold War era. His life was marked by intrigue, deception, and a dramatic prison escape that captured global attention. Blake was born to a Dutch mother and an Egyptian Jewish father who fought for the British Army in World War I. After his father's death in 1936, Blake was sent to Cairo to live with relatives, where he attended English school and learned about his father's covert operations, which later influenced his career choices. Blake's journey into espionage began during World War II. After escaping from the Netherlands, which was occupied by the Nazis, he made his way to Britain. There, he joined the British Royal Navy and was later recruited by the British Secret Intelligence Service, SIS, commonly known as MI6. His linguistic skills and cultural knowledge made him an asset in intelligence work. Blake's career as a spy took a dramatic turn during the Korean War. In 1950, he was stationed in Seoul when North Korean forces invaded the city. Captured and held for 3 years, Blake underwent a profound ideological transformation influenced by his North Korean captors and exposure to Marxist literature. He emerged from captivity as a committed communist and offered his services to the Soviet Union's KGB. Upon his return to Britain in 1953, Blake resumed his duties with MI6, but he was now a double agent. For nearly a decade, he provided the KGB with a treasure trove of information, including the identities of British agents and details of Western intelligence operations. His betrayal led to the deaths and imprisonment of numerous Western operatives, making his actions one of the most damaging espionage cases in British history. Blake's double life eventually unraveled. In 1961, a Polish defector, Michael Goleniewski, exposed him as a Soviet spy. Blake was arrested, tried, and convicted on charges of espionage. He received an unprecedented sentence of 42 years in prison, reflecting the gravity of his betrayal and the extent of the damage he had caused to Western intelligence efforts. Blake was incarcerated in Wormwood Scrubs, a high-security prison in London. Despite the bleak circumstances, he remained hopeful and began to plot his escape. The planning involved meticulous coordination and the assistance of several sympathizers, both inside and outside the prison. Blake's escape plan took shape with the help of 3 anti-nuclear activists: Sean Borg, Michael Randall, and Pat Pottle. These activists were ideologically opposed to nuclear weapons and the establishment, and they viewed Blake's harsh sentence as unjust. They were motivated not by loyalty to Blake, but by their own principles and a sense of injustice over his punishment. The escape was executed on October 22, 1966. Blake's co-conspirators managed to smuggle a walkie-talkie into the prison, allowing him to communicate with them directly. The plan hinged on precise timing and coordination. Bork, a skilled handyman, played a crucial role in the technical aspects of the escape. On the night of the escape, Blake made his way to a pre-arranged section of the prison wall. Bork had earlier cut through the bars of a window, creating an escape route. With the help of a rope ladder thrown over the wall, Blake climbed out of his cell and over the prison wall. A getaway car, driven by Randall and Pottle, was waiting to whisk him away. The operation went off without a hitch. Blake and his accomplices managed to evade immediate detection, driving through the night to a safe house. From there, they began the next phase of the escape plan, getting Blake out of the country. After his escape, Blake was hidden by his supporters in a series of safe houses in London. The authorities were unaware of his whereabouts, and a massive manhunt ensued. Despite the intense search, Blake remained undetected, thanks in part to the careful planning and support network provided by his accomplices. Blake's journey to freedom involved a series of covert moves. His supporters smuggled him out of the country in a camper van, disguised as a tourist. He traveled through several countries, including Germany, before finally reaching East Berlin. Once in East Berlin, Blake contacted the Soviet authorities, who arranged for his safe passage to Moscow. Upon his arrival in the Soviet Union, Blake was received as a hero. He was granted Soviet citizenship, provided with a comfortable apartment, and given a position in the KGB. Blake spent the rest of his life in Moscow, living under the protection of the Soviet government. He continued to work for the KGB in various capacities, sharing his extensive knowledge of Western intelligence operations. Blake's escape and subsequent life in the Soviet Union were marked by a sense of vindication. He remained unapologetic about his actions, viewing himself as a soldier in an ideological battle rather than a traitor. His story became a powerful symbol of Cold War tensions and the complex loyalties that defined the era. Before his successful escape, Blake had considered and even attempted other means of breaking out of prison. He explored the possibility of bribing guards and digging tunnels, but these plans were either too risky or impractical. The escape orchestrated by Bork, Randall, and Pottle was his most feasible option, relying on external support and meticulous planning. The authorities had underestimated Blake's determination and the resources available to him. This oversight allowed him to exploit weaknesses in the prison system and escape despite the high security measures in place. George Blake's escape was a major embarrassment for the British government and its security services. The public reaction was mixed, with some viewing Blake as a dangerous traitor who had caused significant harm to national security. Others, influenced by the anti-establishment sentiments of the 1960s, saw him as a victim of harsh Cold War justice. Blake's story has been the subject of numerous books, documentaries, and films, reflecting the enduring fascination with espionage and the moral ambiguities of the Cold War. His escape highlighted the challenges of maintaining security in high-profile cases and the lengths to which individuals and groups would go to challenge perceived injustices. In the Soviet Union and later Russia, Blake was celebrated as a hero. His contributions to Soviet intelligence were recognized with numerous awards, and he lived a relatively comfortable life in Moscow. Despite his controversial legacy, Blake remained a significant figure in the history of espionage. Blake's ability to evade capture and start a new life in the Soviet Union underscores the intricate dynamics of Cold War espionage and the perpetual cat-and-mouse game between intelligence agencies. While he remains a controversial figure, his escape is a remarkable example of human ingenuity and the powerful impact of ideological commitment. The climb to freedom was treacherous, but did George Blake truly escape the clutches of the Cold War? Was he a hero or a villain? Join us next time as we explore the legacy of the spy who escaped and delve into the aftermath of his daring escape. If you crave tales of espionage and international intrigue, hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more.